The air in Ayatro never stood still. It carried whispers, fragments of stories too dangerous to be spoken in the open. Beneath the ancient cotton tree, where shadows stretched longer than they should, elders lowered their voices when certain names were mentioned. But no matter how hard they tried to silence the past, one question remained unanswered: what really happened at BABA ODU's farm? Those chickens, feathers gleaming like molten gold, were unlike any in the land. They thrived when crops withered, grew fatter while the rivers dried, and no one ever saw them hatch from eggs. Traders paid fortunes to own them, believing they carried the blessings of unseen forces. But blessings, when questioned, can turn to curses. And those who asked too many questions disappeared. Akin laughed when others whispered about spirits lurking in the farm, about the wound on BABA ODU's leg that never healed. He thought the old ways were just stories, until the night he stepped too close to the truth. What he saw beneath the lantern's glow changed everything. Now, ask yourself, if you had heard the whispers, would you have gone looking for answers? In the heart of a great land, where the sacred forest stretched endlessly, there lay a small but vibrant village named Ayatro, where the scent of roasting maize and the rhythmic beats of the talking drum carried through the air, blending into the everyday lives of its people. It was a place where the old ways still held power, where the spirits of ancestors were honored in grand ceremonies, and where traditions were passed down through stories whispered under the moonlight. At the heart of this village stood BABA ODU, an elderly but powerful figure, revered as the greatest poultry farmer the land had ever known. His chickens were not ordinary, they were plump, golden-feathered, and said to be blessed by the spirits themselves. Every festival season, chiefs and traders would travel from distant towns to buy BABA ODU's sacred chickens, believing that consuming them brought prosperity and protection. Yet, behind the admiration and success, there lingered whispers, hushed suspicions that no one dared voice too loudly, rumors of dark magic and forbidden rituals surrounding his farm, for despite his wisdom and generosity, BABA ODU carried a secret no one had uncovered. His farm, nestled at the edge of the village near the Cross River, was a place of intrigue, watched over by a towering cotton tree that the elders claimed was home to spirits. The mystery deepened with BABA ODU's affliction, a festering wound on his leg that never healed, despite the prayers, herbs, and sacrifices performed to cleanse it. Some villagers said it was a punishment from the gods, while others believed it was the price he paid for his unnatural connection to the chickens, who thrived even as the land suffered from drought and misfortune. Among those who yearned to uncover the truth was a young boy named Akin, a fearless and curious soul who had grown up hearing tales of BABA ODU's mystical chickens but refused to believe in the supernatural explanations. Akin's father, Edward, was a respected hunter, and his mother, Monarchy, a skilled weaver, but it was the unseen, the unexplained, that drew Akin's fascination. When his friends spoke in awe about BABA ODU's chickens, he listened with skepticism. How could mere poultry bring fortune? How could a farmer, aging and infirm, command such dominance in the market when others struggled? It was during the Harmattan season, when the winds blew dry and the elders prepared for the grand New Year's festival, that Akin decided he could no longer sit back and listen to rumors. He needed to see the truth for himself. On a night when the moon hung low and the village drums had gone silent, he crept past his father's compound, through the dense path leading to BABA ODU's farm. The ground was damp with evening dew, and the air was thick with the distant hoot of night owls, as if nature itself was warning him to turn back. But Akin was not afraid. As he approached the farm, he crouched behind a fallen palm tree, eyes locked on the figure moving in the dim lantern light. BABA ODU emerged from his hut, moving with the deliberate steps of someone carrying out a sacred duty. In his hands, he held a small gourd filled with a strange powder, shimmering like the sand of a cursed river. Akin watched in stunned silence as the old man scattered the powder into the chicken feed, whispering incantations in an ancient dialect that Akin barely understood. He had heard the village priest speak similar words during cleansing rituals, but never had he seen them used in such a manner. The chickens, instead of clucking mindlessly, responded in unison, their eyes glowing momentarily under the flickering light. Akin's breath caught in his throat. Was it true? Were the whispers right? Was BABA ODU practicing something forbidden? Lost in his thoughts, he failed to notice a twig beneath his foot until it snapped, the sound piercing through the stillness like a blade. Instantly, BABA ODU turned, his sharp eyes locking onto Akin's hiding place. Who goes there? His voice, deep and commanding, sent shivers down Akin's spine. The boy's mind raced. He could run, but BABA ODU was already moving toward him. Before he could make a decision, the old man reached out and yanked him from the shadows. "Oh, Akin, the hunter's son. Curiosity has brought you where you should not be." Akin swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. I only wanted to see what?" BABA ODU's gaze darkened. "To see what you were never meant to witness." The chickens clucked in eerie synchronization, their bodies strangely still. Akin knew he had stumbled upon something dangerous. "I won't tell anyone," he blurted out, but the old man only smiled, a slow, knowing smile that carried no warmth. "That's what the others said," he whispered. Before they disappeared. Akin's blood ran cold. Others? Who were they? Before he could process the implications, BABA ODU tightened his grip. "Come," he said, dragging Akin toward the coop. The door creaked open, revealing a darkness deeper than the night outside. "You will stay here until you understand." Panic surged through Akin's veins, but he dared not fight. Not yet. The last thing he saw before BABA ODU shut the door was the faint glow of the golden powder reflecting off the chicken's unblinking eyes. He was trapped. And for the first time in his life, Akin was truly afraid. Hi besties. I am so grateful for your support to Folktales by AIYETORO. Where are you watching from? Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment. The darkness inside the chicken coop was suffocating, the air thick with the scent of damp straw and something else, something metallic, something unsettling. Akin's heart pounded in his chest as he pressed his back against the rough wooden walls, his eyes straining to adjust to the dim light filtering in through the cracks in the planks. The chickens, which had moments ago been frenzied, now stood eerily still, their golden feathers gleaming even in the faint glow. He could hear BABA ODU's footsteps retreating, the sound of the heavy door locking behind him sending a chill through Akin's spine. He was alone. Or at least, he thought he was. Then came the whisper. It was faint at first, like the rustling of dried leaves in the wind, but unmistakable. Akin's breath itched as he turned his head sharply, searching for the source. "Who's there?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Silence. Then, again, the whisper. "You should not have come." The voice was low, almost a breath against his ear, and yet there was no one beside him. The chickens remained unmoving, their glowing eyes reflecting an intelligence that sent a shiver through him. Akin pressed his palm against his mouth to steady his breathing, forcing himself to think. If BABA ODU had truly done something to those who had discovered his secret before, then he was in grave danger. He had to find a way out. The walls of the coop were sturdy, reinforced by thick bamboo poles and tied with strips of leather. He ran his hands along them, searching for any weakness, but found none. The only exit was the heavy wooden door, barred from the outside. His fingers trembled as he traced the carvings on the door, intricate symbols he did not recognize, etched deep into the wood as though they held power. Akin's mind raced with memories of stories the village elders told around the evening fires, tales of forbidden magic, of men who had bargained with forces beyond the mortal realm. Was that what BABA ODU had done? Was this why his chickens were different? Time dragged on, and the air in the coop grew colder, the strange whispers fading into an eerie stillness. Akin's limbs were stiff from crouching, but he dared not make too much noise. He knew that somewhere outside, BABA ODU was waiting, watching. The thought of what might happen if he did not escape made his stomach twist. Just as he was about to slump back against the wall, his fingers brushed against something smooth, something unnatural amidst the rough wood. A knot in the planks, slightly looser than the others. His pulse quickened as he pushed against it gently, feeling the give beneath his fingertips. The whispers returned, this time urgent, insistent. He is coming. Panic surged through Akin's veins as he pressed harder against the weak spot in the wood. A crack splintered in the silence, but it was too late. The sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoed outside. The unmistakable rasp of BABA ODU's voice followed. Are you ready to understand? The door creaked open, and Akin barely had time to react before the dim lantern light illuminated the coop, casting long, grotesque shadows on the walls. BABA ODU stepped inside, his eyes gleaming with something unreadable, the golden powder in his hands catching the flickering glow. There is no need to be afraid, Akin. You were meant to see this. The chickens stirred, their feathers ruffling in response to his presence. This is a gift, BABA ODU continued, stepping closer. The power to thrive, to endure, to be more than what the world expects. Akin's back pressed harder against the wooden planks, his fingers still working against the weak spot. He had to stall, had to buy himself time. What is the powder? He asked, his voice shaking. BABA ODU chuckled, the sound deep and knowing. You have already guessed, haven't you? You've heard the whispers in the village. They say I have made a bargain, that I have secrets hidden in these walls. He held up the gourd, tilting it slightly so the golden dust shimmered in the dim light. They are right. Akin swallowed hard. Why? Why do you need it? BABA ODU's expression darkened, his fingers tightening around the gourd. Because power has a price, boy. And nothing in this world comes without sacrifice. He took another step forward, and Akin felt his resolve waver. The whispers were growing louder now, overlapping voices filled with warnings and sorrow. You must run, they urged. You must not become like the others. The moment BABA ODU reached for him, Akin acted. With a burst of strength, he threw himself against the weakened plank, the wood splitting under his force. He tumbled backward into the open air, the cold night wind hitting his face as he scrambled to his feet. BABA ODU's shout rang out behind him, followed by the frenzied clucking of the chickens, but Akin did not stop to look back. He ran, his feet pounding against the earth as he pushed himself toward the village, toward safety. He did not know what awaited him there, but one thing was certain, he would never see BABA ODU's chickens the same way again. And neither would anyone else. The night stretched on as Akin sat in the darkness of the coop, his back pressed against the rough wooden walls, his breath shallow and unsteady as he listened to the unsettling clucks of the chickens around him. Their beady eyes glowed faintly in the dim light from a small lantern that flickered at the far end of the enclosure, casting eerie shadows that danced across the ground. The scent of dried hay mixed with something else, something pungent, almost metallic, hung thick in the air, making his stomach churn. He had grown up around livestock, but there was something unnatural about these chickens, something that set his instincts on edge. His fingers twitched as he traced the grain of the wooden planks beneath him, mind racing as he tried to figure out a way to escape before BABA ODU returned. The old man's words echoed in his head, that's what the others said before they disappeared. Who were the others? What had happened to them? Akin had always been brave, but now, for the first time, fear gripped him in a way he couldn't shake. He pressed his ear against the coop door, listening carefully for any sounds beyond the walls, but the only thing he could hear was the occasional rustle of leaves outside and the distant hoot of an owl. Was BABA ODU still nearby? Had he gone back to his hut? He had to act fast. Taking a deep breath, he reached out, feeling along the door for any weak spots. The wood was old but sturdy, reinforced with iron nails that had rusted over time. If he tried to force it open, it would make too much noise. His only other option was to find another way out. His eyes darted around the coop, searching for anything that might help him. That was when he noticed the hole near the base of the wall, just large enough for a small animal to crawl through. It was partially covered with straw, but he could see where the dirt had been disturbed, likely by rodents or stray dogs looking for food. Hope surged in his chest. If he could dig through, he might be able to squeeze out. Carefully, he shuffled forward, mindful not to startle the chickens. He dug his fingers into the earth, scraping away at the loose dirt as quietly as he could. It was slow work, his hands quickly becoming caked in mud, but he didn't stop. He had no idea how much time he had before BABA ODU returned, and he wasn't about to wait and find out what the old man had planned for him. As he walked, he tried not to think about the chilling way BABA ODU had looked at him, or the strange golden powder the man had scattered into the chicken feed. What was it? Some kind of magic. Akin wasn't sure he believed in such things, but what he had seen that night defied explanation. The chickens were not normal. The way they moved, the way they reacted to BABA ODU's presence, it was as if they understood him. As if they obeyed him. He was so lost in thought that he nearly missed the sound of footsteps crunching outside the coop. His breath hitched. BABA ODU was coming back. He pressed himself against the wall, heart hammering in his chest as the footsteps grew closer. The latch on the door rattled, and a moment later, it swung open with a slow creak. Akin held his breath as the old man stepped inside, carrying a bowl filled with a thick, dark liquid. His face was calm, almost serene, but his eyes gleamed with something unreadable. "You are awake," BABA ODU said, his voice smooth but laced with an underlying menace. "Good. You must be hungry." Akin said nothing, watching warily as the old man crouched down and set the bowl on the ground. The scent that wafted from it was strong, earthy, bitter, with an undertone of something metallic. Blood. Akin's stomach turned. He had no intention of eating anything BABA ODU offered. The old man studied him for a moment, then sighed. "You think I mean to harm you," he said, shaking his head. "You misunderstand, child. I do not wish to hurt you. I wish to teach you." "Teach me what?" Akin finally forced himself to speak, his voice hoarse. BABA ODU smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent chills down Akin's spine. "To see the world as it truly is," he said. "To understand the power that runs beneath the surface of this land. The power that feeds these chickens, that makes them stronger than any others." He gestured toward the birds, who remained eerily still, watching the exchange as if they understood every word. "You have seen what others have not. That makes you special. It means you have a choice." Akin swallowed hard. "What choice?" The old man leaned in slightly, his voice lowering to a whisper. "You can live here unchanged, knowing only half the truth. Or you can stay, learn, and inherit something far greater than you could ever imagine." Akin's mind reeled. Inherit. What was BABA ODU saying? That he wanted to pass this knowledge on to him? That he wanted Akin to become like him? The thought sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through him. He had come here seeking the truth, but he hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected to be offered a place in whatever dark secret BABA ODU was hiding. The silence stretched between them, heavy and charged. Finally, BABA ODU straightened, his expression unreadable. "I will give you time to think," he said. "But do not take too long. The spirits do not wait forever." With that, he turned and walked out of the coop, leaving Akin alone once more. As soon as the door closed, Akin let out a shaky breath. He had no intention of staying, no intention of learning whatever twisted secret BABA ODU wanted to teach him. He needed to get out, and he needed to do it now. Ignoring the bowl of strange liquid, he turned back to the hole he had been digging, his movements frantic as he scraped at the dirt. His fingers ached, but he didn't stop. He didn't know how much time he had before BABA ODU returned again, and he refused to wait and find out. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, but finally, the hole was big enough. With one last glance at the chickens, who were still watching him, their eyes glinting in the dim light, he took a deep breath and wriggled through. The moment he was free, he scrambled to his feet and bolted, running as fast as his legs would carry him toward the village. The night was still, the only sound the pounding of his own footsteps against the ground. He didn't dare look back, didn't dare slow down. He had to reach his father, had to tell someone what he had seen. Whatever BABA ODU was doing, whatever dark magic he was wielding, it had to be stopped. But as he neared the village, something strange happened. His vision blurred, his head suddenly spinning as a wave of dizziness crashed over him. His legs faltered, and he barely managed to stay upright. What was happening? He tried to push forward, but his limbs felt heavy, sluggish. Then, realization struck him like a blow to the chest. The bow. The air in the coop. The strange, metallic scent. He had inhaled something. BABA ODU had planned for this. Panic surged through him, but it was too late. The last thing he saw before his vision went completely dark was the faint outline of a figure emerging from the trees. Then, everything went black. The village of Ayatro had always thrived on the balance of tradition and secrecy, where wisdom was passed through whispers and the knowledge of old ways was held tightly by the elders who guarded them like precious stones. But balance was a fragile thing, and the events of recent days had set a disturbance rippling through the heart of the community like an unseen storm. Akin's disappearance had not gone unnoticed, though many still held their tongues out of fear or uncertainty. His mother, Monarchy, had searched frantically, knocking on doors, calling his name through the winding paths between the huts, but the night had swallowed him whole, leaving only an eerie silence in response. By the time the sun rose over the thatched rooftops and the morning mist clung stubbornly to the village paths, the reality of his absence had begun to settle like a heavy stone in the stomachs of those who loved him. But there were others, those who watched with wary eyes, who knew more than they let on, and who dared not speak of what they feared to be true. Among them was an elder named Baba Jola, a man whose years of experience had made him a pillar in the community. He had seen many seasons come and go, had witnessed the rise and fall of great hunters and wise healers, but he had also seen the darkness that crept beneath the surface of their peaceful existence. He had long suspected that BABA ODU's mastery over his sacred chickens was no mere gift of the gods, but something more sinister, something tethered to an old and forbidden practice. Yet, like all others, he had chosen silence over confrontation, a decision that now weighed heavily upon his conscience. When he heard Monarch's cries that morning, he knew that the time for silence was over. He gathered his robes, adjusted his beaded staff, and made his way to the central gathering ground, where the village council met to settle disputes and pass judgment. He had spent too many years ignoring the warnings in his heart, and he would do so no longer. As he stepped into the clearing, he was met with the hushed murmurs of the villagers, their eyes darting toward him with curiosity and unease. Baba Jola, the chief greeted, his voice heavy with concern. "What brings you to this council at such an early hour?" The elder inhaled deeply before speaking. "There are things that have gone unseen for too long, things that have been allowed to fester in the shadows while we turned our eyes away." He turned his gaze toward the crowd, searching for understanding. Akin has vanished, and we all know whose farm lies at the edge of the village where his footprints were last seen. A heavy silence fell over the gathering. The villagers shifted uncomfortably, their faces betraying their inner conflict. The chief's expression darkened. "Baba Jola, you speak of dangerous things. If you have something to say, say it plainly." The elder nodded, gripping his staff tighter. BABA ODU's chickens have fed this village for many years, but at what cost? Have we never wondered how a man whose body is failing him can still yield a harvest so great, season after season? Have we never questioned the strange powders he sprinkles over his feet, the incantations he whispers when he thinks no one is listening? A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but fear still held many tongues still. And now, a boy is missing, Baba Jola continued. And yet we hesitate. Will we wait for another? And another after that? Until the truth is buried under a mountain of unasked questions. Monarchy stepped forward, her eyes red from sleepless nights and worry. If there is even a chance that my son is there, we must act. I will not stand by and do nothing while he remains lost. The chief studied her for a long moment before nodding. Gather the men. We go to Baba Odu's farm. The decision sent a ripple through the crowd, a mix of relief and fear. No one had ever dared question Baba Odu directly, and no one knew what they would find when they arrived. But there was no turning back now. As the men armed themselves with staffs and machetes, torches in hand, the air grew thick with tension. The villagers followed behind, hesitant yet unable to remain behind as history unfolded before them. When they reached the farm, the sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the land. The air was strangely still, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Baba Odu stood at the entrance of his hut, watching them approach with an expression that was neither surprised nor afraid. "What is the meaning of this?" he asked, his voice calm, but there was an edge to it, something unspoken that made the hairs on the back of Monarch's neck rise. The chief stepped forward. "A boy is missing, and we have reason to believe he was last seen near your land." Baba Odu's gaze flickered, almost imperceptibly, before he let out a slow sigh. "So, you come here with accusations?" He turned his eyes to the gathered crowd. "After all I have done for this village, after all the years I have fed your families, this is how you repay me." Baba Jola was the one who spoke next. "If there is nothing to hide, then you will not object to us searching your farm." For the first time, Baba Odu's expression faltered. "You have no right, we have every right." Monarchy interrupted, stepping forward with fire in her eyes. "Where is my son?" The old man regarded her for a long moment before exhaling sharply. "Search if you must," he said finally, stepping aside. "But do not say I did not warn you." And so, they did. The men fanned out across the land, combing through the chicken coops, overturning baskets, sifting through the storerooms. The more they searched, the more they found, strange markings carved into the wood, sacks of the shimmering powder that Baba Odu had always kept hidden, and then, finally, something that made Monarch's knees buckle beneath her. A piece of cloth. Torn, dirt-stained, but unmistakable. It was the same cloth Akin had been wearing the night he disappeared. "No," she whispered, clutching the fabric as if it could bring her son back. "No, no, no." The chief turned to Baba Odu, his face like stone. "What have you done?" The old man was silent for a long time before he smiled, slow and dark. "You were never supposed to see," he murmured. "You were never supposed to know." Then, with a sudden burst of strength that defied his aging frame, he grabbed a handful of the golden powder and flung it into the air. A strange wind howled through the farm, and the chickens, those golden, unnaturally large chickens, began to shriek, their cries twisting into something almost human. The villagers stumbled back in horror as the world around them spun into chaos. And in the midst of it all, Baba Odu turned and fled into the trees, his laughter trailing behind him like a ghostly echo. He was gone before anyone could stop him. And in his wake, he left behind only the ruins of his secrets and the horror of what had been uncovered. But Akin was still missing. And the nightmare was far from over. The night was thick with tension, the air heavy with the weight of unspoken truth, as the village elders gathered beneath the sacred baobab tree at the heart of Ayatro, their faces grim and their voices hushed, for the secrets that had festered in the shadows for generations were finally clawing their way to the surface, demanding justice. The disappearance of Akin, the boy whose curiosity had led him into the forbidden realm of BABA ODU's farm, had ignited a fury among the villagers, an anger that could no longer be ignored, and as the night stretched on, the people whispered, their voices trembling with fear and determination, for they knew that the time had come to confront the man who had woven his dark magic into their lives, deceiving them with his golden feather chickens and his false promises of prosperity. The elders, led by the wise and formidable Chief Adisa, stood in solemn agreement that BABA ODU must be held accountable, that the spirits of the ancestors had spoken through the restless winds and the howling cries of the night birds, warning them that balance must be restored, and so, with torches in hand and hearts burning with resolve, the villagers made their way toward the farm, their footsteps pounding against the earth in a unified rhythm of justice, their voices rising in a chant order than time itself, a call to the spirits to bear witness to the reckoning that was about to unfold. As they neared BABA ODU's compound, the air grew thick with an unnatural stillness, as if the very ground beneath their feet recoiled from the darkness that lurked ahead, and yet they pressed on, undeterred by the eerie glow emanating from the chicken coop, where the golden powder shimmered like embers in the dim light of the old man's lantern, the same powder that had bewitched the village, binding them to a fate they had never truly understood. Chief Adisa, his aged face lined with the wisdom of countless seasons, raised a hand, signaling the villagers to halt, for he knew that this confrontation would not be an ordinary one, that the forces they were about to challenge were older than the village itself, and so, taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, his voice steady but firm as he called out, "BABA ODU, the time has come to answer for your deeds." The door to the old man's hut creaked open, and from the shadows emerged BABA ODU, his form shrouded in the loose folds of his tattered robe, his eyes gleaming with something far beyond human comprehension, and for a moment, the villagers faltered, for though they had come prepared for battle, they had not expected to be met with a gaze so piercing, so filled with ancient knowledge, that it seemed to strip them of their very essence, leaving them bare before him. BABA ODU let out a slow, measured breath, his voice a mere whisper that carried through the air like the rustling of dried leaves. "You do not understand what you seek to destroy." The villagers shifted uneasily, their torches flickering as if threatened by an unseen force, but Chief Adisa stood his ground, his voice unwavering as he declared, "We understand enough. We understand that our children have gone missing, that the land suffers while your chickens thrive, that your wound festers as though it feeds on something unnatural. Tell us, BABA ODU, what bargain have you struck with the spirits?" A silence settled over them, a silence so profound that even the night insects ceased their song, and then, with a slow, deliberate motion, BABA ODU lifted the hem of his robe, revealing the wound that had tormented him for years, and the villagers gasped in horror, for what they saw was no ordinary affliction, but a gaping void of writhing shadows, a wound that pulsed with an otherworldly hunger, and as they watched, the shadows slithered forth, twisting and coiling around BABA ODU like living tendrils, whispering in voices that did not belong to this world. The villagers recoiled, some dropping their torches in fear, but Chief Adisa held firm, his voice like steel as he demanded, "What have you done?" BABA ODU's expression was unreadable, his lips curling into a bitter smile as he murmured, "I have done what was necessary to protect this village, to ensure its survival when the famine threatened to consume us all. The spirits came to me in the dead of night, when the land was barren and the rivers ran dry, and they offered me a gift, a way to make the chickens flourish, to bring wealth and prosperity to Ayatro, but every gift has its price, and so, I gave what they asked." His gaze flickered toward the chicken coop, where the birds sat eerily still, their golden feathers glowing under the torchlight, and the realization dawned upon the villagers with the force of a thunderclap: these chickens, the source of their fortune, had been fed with something far darker than grain, their flesh enriched with the essence of those who had vanished. A wail rose from the crowd, the voice of Akin's mother, who fell to her knees, clutching her chest as the truth shattered her world, and the village erupted into chaos, voices screaming, hands grasping for justice, but BABA ODU only stood there, unmoving, his fate already sealed in the eyes of the people. Chief Adisa, his heart heavy with the weight of judgment, raised his staff and spoke the final words that would end this chapter of darkness. BABA ODU, for your sins, you are cast out from this land, your name erased from the memories of the living, and the spirits shall decide your fate. The villagers surged forward, their fury ignited, and as BABA ODU was dragged toward the cursed river, where the spirits awaited, his laughter rang through the night, a haunting sound that lingered even as the waters swallowed him whole, reclaiming what had always belonged to them. The dawn that followed was heavy with mourning, yet there was also relief, for though the village had lost much, they had reclaimed their future, and as the sun rose over Ayatro, painting the sky with hues of hope, the people gathered to cleanse the land, to rid themselves of the remnants of BABA ODU's treachery, and to honor those who had been lost. The chickens were burned, their ashes scattered into the wind, the coop torn down, and the golden powder cast into the river, where the spirits would carry it far beyond their reach, ensuring that no trace of the darkness remained. As the days passed, the land began to heal, the soil rich once more, the rivers flowing with new life, and the people found solace in the knowledge that justice had been served, that balance had been restored. Yet, in the quiet moments, when the wind whispered through the trees and the night grew still, some swore they could still hear the faint echo of laughter, drifting through the village like a ghostly reminder that some spirits never truly rest, and that the past, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of returning when one least expects it. And so, Ayatro moved forward, its people wiser, its traditions forever changed, for they had learned that even the most prosperous gifts can bear the heaviest curses, and that the hunger of the unknown is never truly satisfied. And as the new generation grew, they carried with them the lesson of BABA ODU, a tale woven into the very fabric of their existence, a story that would be told for generations to come, a warning, a reminder, a reckoning of the ancestors. Thank you besties for watching till the end. What do you think of this story, and did it remind you of anyone? Please share in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to Folktales by AJ, so we can keep bringing you inspiring African folktale stories on Folktales by AJ.